I see this all the time, especially, as a dad of 3 girls. I see it often with guys.
They say that.
Yes, I'm kind of a private person.
I'm a private person.
That is so red flaggy all over the place.
Where were you 4 years ago?
Hey, welcome back to the Dating Detox Show. My name's Eric Wooten. This is my co-host, Autumn. How are you doing?
So good. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome. Listen, if you have not already downloaded the Modern Daters Playbook, we got a free guide for you. Go to datingdetoxshow.com and you can grab that. And so here's what we're going to talk about today.
What are we doing?
Red flags.
I forgot to bring my red flags.
We need like big red flags. We could just wave them. Not little ones, like a big
ones.
I'm sure you've seen a couple red flags in your dating
A few
seasons.
A few.
So I want to hear some of yours. I've got a list
Okay.
of like I could have a list of like 100. So
You know,
I did.
Eric, I am
Yeah.
interested in what your red flags to dating are. Because how many years has it been since you've dated?
Oh, jeez. It's been a couple.
Okay.
But I spend all my time with couples.
And you have daughters.
I have 3 daughters.
So I'm sure you've heard some of their red flags.
I would even say yes. I've seen red flags in some of their relationships.
Okay.
But do you think my daughters listen to my advice? No. No is the answer.
Oh.
In fact, my middle one, who's married, I remember shortly after she got married, she texted my wife and said, "Hey, do you know any good marriage books that we could be doing?" And my wife was like, "You know who you could maybe talk to?
Your dad.
Your dad."
Wow.
Yeah. So
because I would like to constantly picking your brain on things. So.
Yeah, well, anytime, because my kids don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can learn something then. What are the red flags that you would advise?
Yes, these are obviously talking to a lot of people. So I'm going to give you 7 of mine, and we can talk about them.
Okay.
And then I want to hear some of what you've experienced that may not be on my list. So I got a list right here.
Okay,
You
tell
ready?
me. Tell me.
All right.
Here we go.
Here's number 1. When they have strained or absent relationship with family.
Ooh. Is it family like mom and dad or like siblings?
I think it can be all of the above.
Dang.
Now, and here's what I love about these, because there'll be people I talk to where I share concerns about stuff, and generally, when they really like somebody, their pushback is always, well, yeah, but they have a real dysfunctional family, and it's not good for them to have a relationship with their family. And I'll concede that like 1% of the time. Every once in a while, there legitimately is people whose family is so dysfunctional and toxic, it is better for you not to have a relationship
Or
with them.
trying to put better healthy boundaries.
Yes, that's a different subject. So what I've found with people who are struggling or have absent or strained relationship is it's usually an indicator of some stuff they lack, right? Inability to put boundaries, healthy boundaries with people around them. And so you get families that are like overbearing or too enmeshed or stuff like that. And so they're just like, well, I just don't deal with them instead of setting a boundary.
So if hypothetically, there was a guy who was like, yeah, when I get mad at my mom, I don't talk to her for a month. That's a big red flag.
Could be, because if he'll do it to his mom, who else might he do it to?
His wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I usually see...
Or even siblings too, right?
Yes.
Like to know you would cut a sibling off, or maybe they've tried, or they've tried. I guess it might just depend, but the mom thing is a pretty big one.
That's what I say. So here's the thing I would say with all red flags, well, there's some red flags that don't even talk about, right? Things like abuse, physical abuse. But I think with most red flags, when you see them, you address them with the person. It's not like, oh, I saw this, I don't say anything, and I just exit.
Yeah.
Address it. Because if people are willing to acknowledge it, adjust, change, that's a healthy. But I think most of the time with people with strained or absent relationships, it's an indicator, they either don't know how to set good boundaries, which is going to impact your relationship. They don't know how to resolve conflict, which is going to impact your relationship. they're quick to write people off or stonewall, withdrawal, silent
Yeah.
treatment, all that kind of stuff, which is going to affect your relationship. So for me, that's a big red flag.
Okay, so what about on my end? You know, I was raised by a single parent. So my dad was not in the picture at all.
Yeah.
But that is due to alcohol and abuse, right? So with that, I mean, there's that awful saying, you know, like women with daddy issues, right? But it's like, it's not me with the daddy issues. It's my father with the issues.
My daddy
like,
with an
it's not
issue.
me
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
any issues.
Sure.
It's him with the issues. But somehow the women end up getting blamed that because we have an absent father, somehow now we're damaged. It's like, no. Like, it's men who can't own up and take responsibility for their own responsibilities and their choices that then, yes, can have an effect on their children. But that doesn't mean that I have to have that stigma of now I have daddy issues because my father was doing his own thing, right? And I wish that would be changed in society.
So, yeah. So the absence of a father does not predicate the presence of daddy issues. But a lot of people do. I mean, that's a conversation to have, right?
Couldn't people have issues even with a present father?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who is overly critical and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, I think the generalization is ridiculous. And in your case, his absence was an indicator or was because of the presence of good boundaries by your mom.
By my mom.
Right? It's like if you're not healthy and you're not doing things, and then maybe there was stuff along the way. We don't need to get into stuff for you, but there was probably stuff along the way if he did try to intervene, if he was like not consistent or different things where you also maybe had to set boundaries at some point. But so again, the idea of a red flag is I see something that could cause concern, I need to address it. And
But even if a guy or a girl meets somebody and the parent is not, the parent chooses to be absent, I think there's a play in that. If the child or the person wants a relationship, if they say, hey, like I've reached out, I've tried to talk to my mom, I've tried to talk to my dad, but they are not wanting it, I feel like that honestly shows a lot of their character to say, hey, I'm trying to build a bridge with them, I want them in my life, but due to their unhealthy habits. So I think the estranged, it has to be, well, would they still want it, or have they tried, attempted, or has the parent just done completely hands off and they've just become selfish into them?
Yeah, no, it's about, again, we're trying to address a person we're dating. So if you're like, I don't talk to my dad, okay, well, how come?
How come?
And if it's like, well, you know, you start seeing stuff that's like, okay, this is you, and this is a pattern. You cut off friends, you cut off parents, you cut off everybody. So I think that could be a red flag.
Okay.
Here's the second red flag, and this one I'm super passionate about. People who describe themselves as private.
Ooh.
And I see this all the time, especially, as a dad of 3 girls. I see it often with guys.
They say that.
Yes. I'm kind of a private person.
I'm a private person.
That is so red flaggy all over the place.
Where were you 4 years ago?
Right here. Remember we talked 10 years ago.
Yeah, but I needed you 4 years ago
Right.
because those exact words have been told to me before.
Yes. And when you hear those, that should be a gigantic red flag.
Run for
Because
the hills.
listen, it's generally one of two things.
Tell me.
And both things are going to impact the relationship.
What?
One is they're private because they're shady, right?
Okay.
And they don't, they're running 2 different relationships, or they've got, you know what I'm saying? That
Yeah.
they're private because they don't want to share stuff with you, because they're just dishonest and shady. The other alternative is some people get there because they've been hurt, been burned, and so they get to a place where it's like, well, I don't really trust anybody. Now that's certainly a better motive, right? One is straight evil, and the other is just out of woundedness, but it's still going to impact your relationship.
For sure.
So I still want to know, like, why are you so private if you don't trust people? Like, we need to heal that before I get in a relationship with you, because again, what's going to happen in a relationship, we're going to hurt each other sometimes. And if your tendency is when you get hurt to pull back, to not share things, to be private, I'm going to experience that too in a relationship with you. The first time I hurt you, and now you're going to start, or the first time maybe I call you out on something and you don't like the feeling. So now you're not going to present stuff to me, and so deception starts coming in. Sure. So either way, one has a worse motive. You're just shady. The other one, you're wounded, but like that could still be a problem.
What if they say they're private, like social media?
So is there somebody who just, I don't do social media, that
Or
don't
like,
care?
or
They post a lot, but it's like, well, I don't really put I like to keep my relationships private. That, yeah, I got it.
and like when then can the relationship become social media public? Or maybe the relationship, when it's private, like, hey, we'll go on dates, like out of the city. Like,
are we asking for a friend right now, or where are we at?
we can go on a date, but in a city next door, because you don't want people in the city.
I don't want people in my business.
I don't want people to know. I don't want people in my business. Like, and I feel like that's a red flag too, to
Absolutely.
say like, hey, I'm fine to date you, but just not like publicly in this area, or let's just keep it in the house, or let's just
they only want to do dates at each other's house.
houses.
And half the time it's never at their house, but it's always at yours. You'd be
What
like,
the
really?
heck?
Yeah.
These
so
are, okay.
Private people. That's the third one.
All right.
The third one, this is pretty easy, and I don't think there's going to be any discussion. But someone who has a hard time saying sorry. You know, people who are never wrong, or they always have an explanation or justification for like if you express to me a concern or I did something to make you feel bad, like I need to be able to go, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. Or I know you said there'd probably be no explanation needed, but when the person's like, oh, I'm sorry, it's just my fault. It's always my fault. I'm sorry. Like they just excessively
Victim, right? Yeah.
Sorry, it's just my fault. It's all me. No, I'm sorry. And it's like, okay, well, I didn't say it was all your fault, but I do appreciate you recognizing that. I'm just awful. I'm sorry. It's like, okay, I don't think I said that, but maybe you do feel that bad. Or are you just trying to let me say, oh, no, it's actually not that bad, and then you just flip the whole switch? Because that happens.
Well, yeah, and either one of them, one who can never acknowledge they're wrong is going to put you in a place where you stop doing it, or one who victimizes everything.
Yeah, it's my fault. It's my fault. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, but like, I guess I can't share anything. So sorry is at the heart. Like even relationship experts, would say it's not, John Gottman says, it's not so much the conflict, but a couple's ability to repair.
That's so
It's
good.
important. And so sorry is crucial. You need to have somebody that can say, that's not always trying to explain you out of your feeling. Like, no, you shouldn't feel that way because that's not what I was doing. And okay, no, how about just saying, I'm sorry that I impacted you that way.
I love that too, Eric, because so I teach little people and, they're 6 and 7 years old. So we have issues in class where it's like, okay, you need to say sorry. And then the child will say, I'm sorry. And then the other child will say, it's okay. And I'm genuinely starting to teach my children to look at them and say, do not tell them it's okay. What they did was not okay.
Yeah.
Them hitting you or saying this to you was not okay. You can just say, thank you for saying sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. I accept your apology.
Yeah.
Because I think we as adults too have gotten so accustomed to say, it's okay. Don't worry about it. No worries. When really it's like, are you kidding? Like, no, this was awful. And maybe we don't show it to them, but like, on the outside to like friends, it's like, can you believe they did this? It's like, what? But then to their face, it's like, it's okay. Like, it's fine. You can just kind of like roll it off. But really, it's like, actually, it really wasn't okay. But I appreciate you acknowledging it. And I'm going to process my thoughts on that situation. And I do want to move forward. But I really didn't like that. Yeah. And just acknowledging it again. So many would just shove it under the rug. Oh, it's okay. I'm sorry. I know. It's okay. And then they end up doing it again. Sorry in repentance is to repent, turn away, don't do it again.
Yeah.
And too many people keep saying sorry and then they're still doing it.
Yeah. So if someone can't say sorry, run. That's all I'm saying. Red flag.
Got it.
All right. This one's a little more nuanced, but I think if they have no friends who are married or in long-term relationships, and some of this is seasonal, right? If you're like 24 and all your friends are 24, there may not be a lot of them that are married.
Okay.
But I think if, when you start getting older, late 20s, early 30s, 40s, if you're dating somebody that all their friends, like they don't have anybody that's moved into that. And again,
Season.
it impacts friendships, right? If you got a whole group of singles and one gets married, they kind of pull away and get in married, but you still have some level of friendship. I just think at the end of the day, if you're going to be in a long-term relationship and a healthy relationship, you want somebody that has some models around them of what it could look like, and not just a bunch of single friends giving them input and advice. So that's not like a gigantic one, but I'm kind of like, why are you 42 and you don't have any close friends who have gotten married and stayed married or been in long-term relationships? Like, that kind of
That's good. I haven't thought about that.
All right, here's another one. They treat people poorly who can't do anything for them. Too many times, and again, that's when we nod our head and go, oh yeah, absolutely.
You see it at like restaurants with like your waitress.
Yeah, but
waiter.
But do you not know how many times I've talked to, and it's often a lady, I've talked to a young lady, and she's been like, he treats me so well. He treats me like a queen. Because he's treating her so well, she could care less how he treats other people. She doesn't care about the consistency because it's like, he's so good to me.
Yeah, right now.
Exactly. Exactly. Because how they treat other people is how they're going to treat you when they're not feeling you.
For sure.
Yeah.
That's why you need to see them out.
Yeah. There needs to be consistency. Your
Out and about.
relationship, them with family and
For
friends, and them with regular people who can't do nothing.
I agree with that one.
Cool. All right. Here's another one. Most of their friends are opposite sex friends.
I have lots of
And I
comments
see this on both
that.
sides. The argument I hear a lot from the women is, well, girls are just so catty and guys are so much easier, and so da-da-da-da. And it's like, okay, but why are guys so much easier? Because there's a sexual dynamic there that doesn't exist with same sex. There is I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
I don't care how upright, and there is a different dynamic when, and I'm speaking from a heterosexual standpoint,
Yeah.
a different dynamic when you're engaged in friendships and talking with people of the opposite sex
Okay.
than there is same sex, period. There's just a different dynamic because God created us to be sexual beings. So our sexuality is in everything we do. It's how we talk, it's how we carry ourselves, it's everything. So someone who's like, I only hang out with guys, girls are catty, or guys, like I've just always gotten along better with girls, that's a concern for me.
Well, and I think even hearing you say that makes me wonder it goes back to that very first question with like their family relationships. Like what did they grow up with? Mostly girls, like are they the guy with girl siblings, or
Sure.
are they the girl with guy siblings, or do they have a close relationship with their dad or with their mom more, or maybe their mom isn't so much and they were closer with their dad, that's why they like guys more.
Yeah.
Or if I think that has a play in it too on their upbringing.
I think it can, but would that not still be a concern if you're in a relationship with them? Because they're more comfortable with girls. But where are they getting their advice? Who are they talking to?
Yeah. I mean, because I've dated a few guys that are like, yeah, these girls are my sisters, and I'm like, okay. I dated a guy who lived with a girl. He ended up being gay, but it's okay. So I just think that like...
That's... needs to be an episode.
But I just think that like, you can hear these comments. It's like, okay, they're your sisters, they're your friends. And if they have no brothers, if they have no sisters, it's like, I want you to have those girls in your life because maybe they can speak some wisdom to you or knock some sense into you if you are like presenting a situation with us, But then I've also seen it where I don't want you talking to other girls about our relationship, like talk to your guys. But then on the other side, it depends on which guys you're talking to because some guys are not good friends and they're not going to steer you in the right direction.
Absolutely. But that's a whole nother topic on who do we surround ourselves with and friends.
But that's what they're talking to. Like that's where they're getting their knowledge.
I agree. Obviously, having same-sex friends that are unhealthy and toxic is not good for your relationship either. But I just think it's something to talk about and why is that dynamic there because I think it can impact the relationship. And then my last one, I want to hear yours. Last one I would just say is debt. And this debt I would throw into, maybe it's a yellow flag. Like if there's debt, I want to talk about it because not all debt's equal, right? Like a mortgage versus a $1,200 car payment because you need the top line car are different
That's good.
concepts entirely. So I
Or
think
like
around
college loans.
yeah, college loans. So I think around debt, often what debt does do is it shows us a person's inability to delay gratification. It shows us a person's the way they value money or don't value money.
For
and
sure.
so I think if somebody carries a lot of debt, that would be a red flag for me.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that actually goes into...
That's my list.
I think that actually goes right into one of my top things is a career. But that's also because I come from a stable career with longevity, and I look for that.
Yeah.
That's like literally number one. And, you know, people might say like, oh, you date for, you know, a top paying job. It's like, it doesn't have to be like super high paying, but have you been consistent in it? Have you had some years? Is it a career, or is it just like, oh, this is my hobby, or I'm trying to do this, or I'm going to do this? Like one guy, oh my gosh, he was like, yeah, you know, a couple of years, I plan on seeing this. And I'm like, okay, but what are you doing right now? Well, you know, I'm in retail. You know, I'm like, okay, or I'm in sales. No, that's what he said, sales. Sales can be anything.
Yeah, right.
Selling furniture. And I was like, all right, like, you know, on the phone, like, this is not going to work. But I was like, okay, sure. In a couple of years, I'm like, how old are you right now? You know, when he says 37, I'm like, okay, like, I would have hoped you figured this out at maybe 27.
Sure.
And but that's my own personal preference.
Yeah.
So that's a red flag to me, though, because I don't want to have to continue to be like, hey, what are we doing here? What's going on?
Yeah.
And then you have the consistency of a career, and then you end up having to carry the load for the family all the time. It's pretty stressful.
Right.
And finances is one of the top 3 issues that couples
Sure.
end up having. So that's my first one, is the job.
No, that's a good one. It speaks to two things: consistency and what you value, which is somebody who can be committed to things and show they can. Because it's not always fun to go to your job, and
Yeah.
so to be able to follow through when it doesn't feel good.
And with it, though, you know, I'm going to talk about the Lord. So I think when I hear the word submission,
Okay.
I heard this from a lady I follow. I followed her for years. But she said, you know, submission is to submit under the mission of your husband. So I have to know, what is my husband called to do? What is his job? What is his career? What is his path? What is his purpose in life? And am I willing to submit under the mission that God's called him for? And if he doesn't have something that I feel like I can stand behind him, because if you have a wife and you're trying to pursue something and she's constantly like, no, nagging at
Right.
you, like that's not going to encourage him. He needs somebody who's going to be like, hey, you want to be a DJ? You go be a DJ. I'm going to support you, but I'm like, I don't want to be a DJ wife.
But you're not for
you
me.
know,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Because that's going to constantly, you're not going to be proud of your spouse's career. So that's a huge check for me. It's like, what do you do? What is your purpose? Or are you in the process of, are you in it or seeking it? Because I know that when the time comes, I have to submit under the mission that you're on. And I want to help you you can do it really well.
My hope would be that it's also your mission.
That would be even better.
Right.
That would be ideal.
And I don't mean, when I say that, I don't necessarily mean like, oh, that we're purpose partners and we do the same thing.
Yeah.
But mission in my mind is like a vision. Like we're going to the same place.
Exactly.
We may not be like, oh, we're in real estate together, or we do this together.
Yeah.
But it's like, I believe in what you do, and I'm going the same place you are.
And cheer
even
them
if
on.
we're doing different roles. So yeah, it's not. I would hope it's not just and different people desire different things, but it's not just I abandon me to submit to your mission because I believe in it. It's like, no, I should be a helpmate.
The helpmate part of it,
right?
you know?
So.
I mean, it just, to talk about this, like, I asked you, I was,
yeah.
our setup, and I'm like, this is so
pretty.
nice. And you were like, yeah, Jill, his wife, did this. And I'm like, that is so sweet, because clearly.
I don't know how to do this crap.
But she helped you get
Absolutely.
this together.
Yeah.
She supports you in all of the things that you do.
And she's not, again, going back to mission, she doesn't want to be on camera. She doesn't want to be in front of stuff. So she doesn't want to sit down and do videos with me.
Yeah.
Even though she believes in what I'm doing. So
And she serves in other areas.
This is a way to support.
Behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Which is beautiful.
What a perfect example. Look at that. All right. You got
So
any more?
I do. That's like my number one thing.
Yeah.
And then after that, the relationship with the Lord, because of my walk, and I know that if there's no, equally yoked. Equally yoked can be seen in kind of different ways that I've heard, but more so of just, are we both in agreement that Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior? Because if we have two different religions, two different beliefs, two different ways of functioning in life, what are our foundations? If they're not aligned, when it says, to love your wife as yourself, and it's like, okay, are you loving yourself right now? How are you going to love me well?
Sure.
To lay down your life, for a friend, it's like, are you willing to lay down your life for a friend and to grieve and be there for people, care for people, kind of like what you said, treat other people well.
Right.
Kind of all just goes under those foundations of, for me, biblical foundations.
Yeah.
So whether or not the conversation of, I've gone back and forth on like, they have to be serving, they have to be super devoted in church. But then I'm like, you know what? I don't even know if that's a red flag if they're not. But I do think the relationship is important because so many girls will say, oh, they're a Christian, but are they really?
And that to me is the practice of faith.
Yes.
Is more important than just the profession of faith.
I agree.
And so I do think you should line up on, because I can say I love Jesus, and I've counseled premarital couples before where this was the case. Met in church, both say they love Jesus, but when I ask what the practice of that value of faith looks like, so I think we got to line up in values, but then the practice needs to line up. Mm-hmm. For him, it was, I just have a personal relationship with Jesus. Yeah. I pray daily. I do that, some of that kind of stuff. For her, it was attend church regularly, serve, tithe. Yeah. And so just
that's huge.
Both loving Jesus doesn't work there because guess what's going to happen when they need new tires on the car and tithing is not a priority. Yeah. He's going to want that money. And if she strokes a check to the church, there's going to be a fight because they don't practice that value the same way. So I think it doesn't, like, we don't have to be just like running side by side on everything, but I think we've got to value some of those practices. You certainly don't want somebody that's like, oh, you're serving? Like, I don't want you to serve. But then there's also people that are unhealthy in their serving at the expense of their family.
That's true. But that's also like at work.
Absolutely.
They work so much.
But it's in the name of the Lord, so it gets convoluted, right? Because well, you can't be mad at me for serving Jesus is what we're supposed to do, but you're neglecting me at home. Yeah. But I'm serving, so that gets. But yes, I think faith is a great one. That would be a red flag.
No, that one for sure. And then I think the rest of my red flags that come are definitely just your own personal preferences, like the things that are your non-negotiables. Yeah. So if something that is a non-negotiable for you and they have it, that's a red flag for you. So for me, it's like going into knowing 3 or 4 things. I will not date somebody with this. I will not date somebody who does that. I will not date somebody who is this, right? So examples would be like smoker or drinker, children, previously married, they travel a lot for their job. Are they going to be around? Did they get a college degree? If that's that essential for you, is education something? So to be able to know what are your non-negotiables, like, so buying a house. I bought a house when I was 24 years old, right? Yeah. And my realtor was like, okay, what are some things that you really, really want? Yeah. And like, for sure, one of the things was I need a garage. We live in Texas. There's hail. Right. So I'm like, I don't care what it is. My 2 top things were I need a garage and it needs to be within 10 to 15 minutes of my career, my job, my school. And those were like the top 2 things. Everything else is more like preferences, but as long as you know your non-negotiables, and if those things pop up and they're a red flag to you, like hygiene, some girls are okay with guys with long fingernails, cool, or different types of hygiene type things. If you're okay with that, long hair, short hair, not shaved, whatever, if you're okay with that, then great. But if you're not, those are going to be red flags that you can instantly cross off. I tell my students when we're taking tests, I'm like, if you see there's an answer that's not right, cross it out. Just get rid of it. And it just saves you time. Yeah. It just saves you time.
It was not necessarily unhealthy, but just preferences.
They're definitely preferences. But they could be your red flags too. Gotcha. If you know your red flags. I think it should be go in knowing your red flags.
Yeah.
But I think you have some really good ones. So there's a few that I probably could have learned and saved me some time if I had known a couple. The private thing. Man.
Yeah. So here's the reality. If you see red flags, you don't ignore them.
Don't ignore
Those
them.
are things that, now it doesn't mean that you write the person off right away. It means you address them and find out what the root is, find out
Dig
if
a
this
little
person
deeper.
is willing to, but they should be things that you don't just see and be like, oh,
Yeah.
that's okay. That's just them.
I agree, because then I think what ends up happening is you start to make exceptions for your rules. You're like, oh, well, this
I really
isn't
like him.
really like this, but like, I like him and he explained this a little bit more. So I understand why maybe he's not talking to his brother right now. Or, oh, I know why he doesn't have a job right now, but maybe he's in the process of getting one because he's had one. So I know he's capable of getting a job. I mean,
That's
we
a whole
can.
another one. Listen, should we date for potential? And then people play it too, right? The guy will be like, "Well, if I can't count on you when I'm down, then that's not who I want to count on you." Right? Don't even get me started on that. I'm like, let's do it the other way around.
I needed a place to stay. Okay.
Exactly. So I need a girl who's got me when I'm down, and it was like, I don't need to meet you when you're down. If I meet you when we're up and we're good, and you get down, yeah, I got you. But
if
forget
you're
it with
down,
these dudes.
work on you.
That's a red flag right there. Guys who say, I need a girl who's with me when I'm down, when they first met you.
Yeah.
Let him get up on his own. and
Unless
then
we're 18 or 23, like if you're early, like you just graduated or you're early 20s, sure, I can see that. We're building, we're growing together. But if you're 35 and pushing 40, I mean, like even like I said with the walking with the Lord, I mean, a guy was like, "Oh, I'm spiritual." And I'm like, "What does that mean? Like, can we dive into that a little bit more?" Right. I'm willing to experience and everything. Like, okay, that's great for you.
Sure.
But man, that's a lot.
One up down. Anyway, don't ignore red flags is the answer. If you've not already downloaded the Modern Dater's Playbook, get that at datingdetoxshow.com, and we will see you next time.
Bye.